Good morning, Atlanta. Welcome to the ninth in our Invest Atlanta live series for startups and scale ups in the city. These sessions aim to provide timely and relevant information and inspiration to the community during the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. We're entering into the 11th week of this pandemic, and so we know that these series have been really popular, and so we're glad that you're joining us today for what I think and what I'm very excited about having is maybe my favorite series to date. My name is Nathan Regan. I'm the Senior Vice President for Economic Development at Invest Atlanta. Invest Atlanta is Atlanta's economic development agency. We invest in the people, communities, and companies in the city. Our economic development team supports company attraction, retention, and expansion, as well as technology, creative, and startup efforts in the city, as well as small business loans. And you can always find all of our products and programs at investatlanta.com. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we've been focused on bringing resources and support to the community of innovators and entrepreneurs in Atlanta. To that end, we've partnered with the startup ecosystem to bring you this info session today, as we have previously. And we want to thank all of our many sponsors who support this effort with ideas, connections, and helping spread the word. We can't do any of this work without our partners and our sponsors. And to that end, we have some really great people on today. What we're going to have today for you is a conversation with Shylu Nieves Burney and Margaery Presley Davis of Zane Venture Fund. Monica Hooks, who is leading the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. And I hope she talks a little bit about this today, but we have a new cohort of women entrepreneurs, 15 new women entrepreneurs, and we're very excited to see what they're going to be doing with their initiative. Very excited about that. And last but certainly not least, Jay Bailey of the Russell Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. He's going to be moderating today's session. You know, Jay has been an amazing partner for Invest Atlanta. We're very excited to be working with the Russell Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We plan on having a Invest Atlanta satellite office at RCIE, and so we thank Jay for all of his partnership. And look forward to the road ahead. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to today's session. And I hope you enjoyed as much as I plan on enjoying it. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'll turn it over to you guys now. Thanks.
Good morning. I am Jay Bailey. Thank you, Nathan, for that amazing introduction. We've got an incredible panel today, and I'm smart enough to know that I just need to get out of the way and let these three amazing sisters take it. But I want to tee them up the right way. For founders around the country, the isolation of being an entrepreneur, the loneliness at times is always tough. But when you start talking about founders of color, that isolation, that separation is actually excelled even more. So we're going to dig into it. We're going to dig into a conversation about the experience. And it's even hard to separate the conversation about what diverse entrepreneurs and founders go through without talking about current times and how tough it is and how heavy it feels right now, especially. So we've got the right three to chop it up and talk about it. So good morning, Atlanta. And let me bring you our panel. The one and only Monica Hooks. She currently serves as Executive Director of the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, WEI, a business incubator for early-stage female-led startup companies. Before joining Invest Atlanta, Hooks was CEO of the Marketing Oracle, a marketing innovation agency offering strategy and market research. Monica, I am so glad that you're here. Good morning.
Good morning, Jay. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And next up, Shylu Nieves Burney, a powerhouse who spent 20 plus years of her professional career working closely with leading organizations and exceptional talents to create solutions that address disparities through investment in human capital. She founded Zane Venture Fund, a seed fund that would invest in underrepresented founders with the goal of closing the funding gap and generating high returns for investors, and the Founders Roadmap Forum to bring the needed resources to the entrepreneurs in their own backyard. Shylu, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Jay. I'm really excited to be here.
The honor is mine. Like I said, I'm going to tee you guys up and get out of the way. And last but not least, Ms. Margaery Presley Davis, one of Atlanta's 40 under 40, named by the Atlanta Business Chronicle. She's been mentioned in Forbes as a top 100 website for women, Forte Foundation, co-authored Girl Power Uncensored with her chapter From Wall Street to Healing Main Street, is an accredited angel investor, the creator of Your Profit Playbook, the leading business financial planning training platform, managing director of Zane Venture Fund, and host of the podcast Finance Savvy CEO. I think I see branding right there over your shoulder. Thank you, Marguerite, and welcome and good morning.
Good morning, Jay. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Of course. So let's dig into it, guys. We don't have that much time, and I want to make sure everybody gets their voice heard. I want to make sure that those that are listening to us out there in Facebook Live world, you will have the opportunity to ask questions of our panelists. So if you put those in the chat box, we'll be able to see those and we'll be able to ask those questions to our panelists. But let's get into it. This isn't necessarily a straightforward one. And in these times more than ever, the community is looking for leaders. And there are different perspectives. When you talk about diverse founders and everything going on with COVID, some people think some things, some people think others, but everybody knows that we need one another. We need community. So there are different perspectives on how diverse founders are being impacted during COVID-19. Let's start off with your thoughts on this. How are diverse founders being impacted differently?
So I'm happy to go first. In the perfect time, diversity is always a nice have, right? It's not a must have. And so in these times right here, when you're talking about diverse entrepreneurs, especially for us, who that's our entire body of work, is we're looking to be able to not only provide capital, but resources to them. And so usually during these times, diversity efforts are cut, right? Those are some of the first things to go because people don't really see that as sort of a bottom line for them. So they cut those particular programs. And we can almost attest to it because we've gone after resources ourselves to be able to help support the diverse entrepreneur community. And we're being told, talk to us next year. So that tells me that already, folks are being impacted, not only in a corporate environment, but definitely in an entrepreneurial environment. And so we have just decided to double down on the things that we're doing in terms of, creating a virtual series to bring information to entrepreneurs. But because we know for ourselves, if we're getting, told no, I can't imagine what's happening with them and how it's impacting their particular business. And so, I definitely know they're being impacted right now.
Yeah, and if we think about the funding piece, right, when we're in an environment like this and companies across the board are cash strapped, they're running out of cash. And you look at a situation for diverse founders where off the gate, they're receiving less funding already. They are feeling apprehensive about going for loans in the best of environments. And now put yourselves in a situation where there's new regulations. You may not know how to interpret those regulations. You may, and if we know, and we're just, the statistics show that financial literacy lacks in our diverse founder community. And now you're asking them to prepare loan packages to go for funding. And, the challenge is even greater for that group because they have not historically been prepared in the way that's necessary to really succeed when it comes to nailing loans. It's something like 71% of all SBA loans are going to males, right? And that's in the best of environments. So what about the females, the diverse groups that aren't getting that funding that they need and now put them in a cash strapped situation?
Guys, I'll jump in here. I think all of those comments are spot on. I'm going to try and take those and pivot a bit to more of a solution. I think that diverse founders really are having to dig deep, knowing that all of these things are going on. I think, for the cohort that we've just brought on, we've taken the time to really do a lot of deep dive and sort of self-analysis and business analysis, take the time to strategize so that when you are going after particular opportunities, be it funding opportunities, resource opportunities, relationships, you are so clear about your purpose and where you're trying to go that you're taking you're not giving anyone an opportunity to say no to you. So I think that is something that's happening to diverse founders, be they female founders, people of color, because yes, we may be maybe at a disadvantage in some ways, but we also have that as an opportunity, I think.
Absolutely.
And I love that you said opportunity too, Monica, because I know when Shyla and I first met and she was telling about all of her vision around getting the capital to the founders, she was so intentional about saying, we're not stopping at capital. It's about the resources as well. It's the 360 support that you provide. Because, we use the term like it takes a village, but it's true. It's what are we doing to support them along the way? And I love the work that you do, Monica. And, Shyla, you've come up with Zane Access. It is all about how do you provide these additional resources so you win when you get to the marketplace, but we have to be real about what situation are you entering into, so we come with the right solution, getting to the root of the problem about where are the gaps that exist.
Exactly, and that's why the pre-capital program exists. And I know we're gonna talk about that in a bit. This falls under Margaery, but that's why we designed that, because we have seen folks who come out of great accelerators and incubators, but they're still not capital ready. They're still not ready to talk to someone about funding their company. And so we want to be able to get these founders at that point, right? You've gotten all the information, you built this company, now what? And so now you need to be able to talk to investors. And so that's why we have a program specifically designed for that, Monica. So they don't, go in front of folks with this already stigma that we don't have our things together, and then they present pitch their company. And then there's all this more anecdotal data for them to kind of run away with, that diverse founders are not ready, and so we want to make sure they're ready and they know who to talk to when they're ready. And so, yeah.
And it's like when we look at the recent news, everyone's probably, Shyla, you brought it up to the group yesterday around the kind of the profiling around these founders. We think about how diverse founders may get profiled, right? But if we think about, well, what does that mean when you're walking into the room and you're asking for funding? Are you being profiled then? But let's take it a step further again to the solution, but it's also about being ready and being ready for that conversation about capital. And you're doing the prep work ahead of time. You're asking, am I ready for this conversation? Have I done the work? So when you ask the question, Jay, about is COVID impacting this group differently? I think that it's a resounding yes, but I also don't want us to just focus on the COVID point, because before COVID hit, we were already being impacted differently when it comes to being prepared, being capital ready to really succeed when it comes to investing, and actually just being able to get the funds you need for your business to be successful, to flourish and grow.
Marguerite, I think that's a huge point that will tie us to our second question. We have to recognize, and we have to be courageous enough to have the conversation about what was happening before COVID-19. Invest Atlanta, who invest in our communities, we got to own as a city that Atlanta, with all of our pluses and all of our benefits, we're the worst city in the country when it comes to income inequality, the worst city in the country when it comes to economic mobility. So a child born into poverty in Atlanta, Georgia, has less than a 4% chance of reaching the middle class and beyond. But I get really hopeful, and we'll go into this a little bit later. The only thing that differentiates Bankhead and Buckhead is access, opportunity, and exposure. When you start talking about this readiness, this access to resources, this community, this preparation, this readiness and access, again, I don't think there's someone more innovative on the planet than a single mother with 2 kids making $17,000 a year. Atlanta loses GDP every year because we're not providing the access, opportunity, exposure, the readiness that you ladies have talked about to those that need it. We've got brilliant ideas on both sides of the map. And I think bodies like Invest Atlanta can be a tool that we use, an organization that we use to bridge that gap. And things like WEI and the Zane Venture Fund provide that undergirding necessary to maximize all this beautiful talent and brilliance that we have in the city that goes unrecognized. Because if we're going to create an economic development strategy to grow Atlanta without focusing on diversity, then we're all being intellectually disingenuous in our approach to try to move the needle. So now you've talked about the problem. And as leaders and as founders, any entrepreneurial endeavor is just finding a problem and finding an economic solution. Let's talk solutions. So as leaders of organizations, we have the responsibility to be the support system that is incredibly valuable for our founders. As diverse community leaders, what are some of the tangible things that you are doing to support founders to not only navigate this time, but the challenging path that we know lies ahead for any of our founders? Let's talk about solutions now.
I'd love to jump in here and Jay, talk about the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. We are an incubator and we are for early stage startups, and we are in place to wrap our arms around female founders and make sure they do have access to resources. They do have access to information. Something that we talked about earlier, and I want to make sure that our audience hears, is that, there are facts. There are facts out there that in the past, as a community of diverse community, we may not have had access, and that's okay. But it's very important to fill those gaps and to address it. So how? Find your tribe. And I think that for women, for example, or that's what the We program is about. It's about being with a tribe, being with a community of people that want you to succeed, and that will give you a safe space to fill those gaps, so that when you do go out to pitch or do whatever you're going to do, you've got the confidence to do that. 4-pillar program, strategic analysis, learning and leadership development, strategic partnerships, funding opportunities. It's okay if you don't know everything. No one knows everything. But if you get with the community that will be honest with you, address the gaps, then you're going to be positioned to win. And so I think that programs like this are very important, because it's not about happy talk. We're not saying that none of this happened, okay? We're acknowledging where the gaps are and we're putting things in place. So as an entrepreneur, take advantage of that. And I've taken too much.
So before I turn it over to the Zane people, that's brilliant, Monica, because when you're talking about diverse founders, finding a safe space to fail and fly.
That's right. Simple. That's right.
To have a space where I don't have to feel guarded, I don't have to feel protected, but I can raise my hand and say, I don't know. Because oftentimes, as Shylu, you talked about earlier, many diverse founders come out of these programs, incubators, accelerators, still not pitch ready.
That's right.
And oftentimes, if I'm a minority, if I'm Black and I go in, I'm one of 50 in a cohort, every day I walk in with my armor on and I'm guarded. And if I can't be vulnerable, then we know I can't learn and grow. So for what you provide, Monica, it's critical to this puzzle that we're putting together that's a solution for how we move forward. And so as you start talking about the preparation and the readiness, now let's turn it over to the Zane team to talk about the access and the funding and even the whole entrepreneur concept that you guys are taking, that it's not just about being pitch ready or funding. There are other constructs that we need. So over to you and Shylu and Margaery.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Monica, absolutely love what you guys are doing over the program. I think it is absolutely phenomenal. And, one of the words that Monica used was filling the gaps. And I'm going to kind of start there from some of the work that we do at Zane Venture Fund and at Zane Access. So one of the biggest problems that founders actually cite when they are building their companies is not having access to deep functional level experts that will help grow and scale their company. I think there's a lot of great programs out there and there's a lot of resources, but we also have to be careful about giving resources at such a high 50,000 foot level for these founders that they're not getting into the weeds. They're not diving into the functional areas that it really takes to succeed and actually growing this and scaling their companies. And the reason for the approach is that when you talk about being capital ready, my background is on Wall Street, doing investments for quite a while. And one of the things that you hear again and again, and that founders hear, is you want to hear about what's the traction you have. How are you already performing? No matter if you're going to the bank for a loan or if you are going to a VC. Now, you have to ask yourself the question, well, how do you get to that point where you are positioned to grow, scale, have that traction? And so we really wanted to take the lens of, let's dive into those key critical success factors from a functional perspective, deep functional expert, and be able to provide the founders with the support they need to knock it out of those park in those areas. And I'm talking about things like marketing, operations, leadership development, financial literacy. So those are the areas that we are so passionate about tackling through the pre-capital program. And the pre-capital program is our 12-week program. Applications actually close this Friday. And it will take the founders through dedicated programming around these functional areas while also getting them ready for capital. And Shyla's always so intentional about using the word capital, because this is not being ready for just VCs, because you may not be at the point where you're ready to talk to that VC. So we also have to position ourselves correctly for success by going for what we need to at the appropriate times.
And before I turn it over to Shyla to bring us home, that is something that we really need to underscore. VC capital may not be the best capital for your business. And I think that the story of the day and the narrative of the day is that the only place to get funding if you're a startup entrepreneur is that way. Invest Atlanta has a number of tools and a number of vehicles that can help startup entrepreneurs, and we need to educate. So we can close the education gap when it comes to capital. What's the best kind of capital? How do you absorb it? How do you deploy it? And we can also close the preparation gap. And that's what you do very well, Shyla. So I'll turn it over to you for that last word.
Sure. So for me, while Margaery is mainly focused on the programmatic side, of course, I'm focused on the investment side and talking to investors all the time. And to be very honest, they don't even know we exist in great numbers in terms of diverse entrepreneurs. And so my job is to educate these potential LPs around the missed opportunity. If diverse founders are not invested in, we're leaving a $4 trillion opportunity on the table. So I lead with when I'm talking to LPs, do you want to be able to unlock this opportunity? And here's how. Here's the data behind this. This is what's driving these numbers. Because I don't think people fully understand the breadth of talent that's out there who are starting great companies. And so that's my role. And then the other piece of that, we are purposely building our own pipeline by partnering with different folks, by creating our programs that folks will go through, even starting I'm on a board that's at the high school level for teaching girls about entrepreneurship. We're coming up with our own Access U, which is for university students who will be able to go through our program and get prepared so they're not kicked out of programs, they're not even let in at programs at some of the major universities. We want to solve for that. So we're intentionally building a pipeline so no one will say these diverse entrepreneurs don't exist. No, they exist. Here they are, and they're ready to talk to you because they're capital ready. They've gone through our programs. And so we feel very good about the work we're doing. Everything we're doing is intentional. We're not leaving anybody behind. That's our goal.
Intentional and deliberate. When you start talking about emerging domestic markets, there is a whole conversation that we can have about how much money we're leaving on the table by not providing these pathways for diverse entrepreneurship and innovation. We have got to change the definition of innovation and who it impacts. So to the three of you that are in the middle of this fight, I'm just honored to be on the Foursquare with you and really want to say to the group out there in the world, we have three bad sisters here that are doing the work and are doing it every day and are committed to it. And what I love about each of them is they're incredibly passionate and incredibly focused. And so you have the opportunity to ask them questions. So if you put it in the chat box, I'll be able to see them. But while you're asking your questions for Monica, for Shyla, for Marguerite, I'll give you the last word. If there's this final word that you want to give to our audience, to diverse founders, what would that be? And then we'll go into questions.
I want to pick up off of Shyla's point about all of these opportunities and try and tie it back to my original point about knowing your tribe, understanding what gaps may need to be filled, and being okay with that. Again, it's okay to not know. You just need to get into an environment where you can find out. And I think what's so, so important is that as an entrepreneur, you look at that as an opportunity. There's actually a book by Arlen Hamilton that went out, and also Stacey Abrams. They both talk about using being underestimated as an advantage. If no one's looking for your opportunity, make them look for your opportunity and go into it with that confidence and get your head right and go into it with that confidence so no one can say no to you.
So for me, I just want them to know, the entrepreneurs to know that we're here. We're here for you. This was all designed for you. I would not be here if I didn't know that there was a group of entrepreneurs that I could serve. And so that's what I'm here for, to be able to serve the entrepreneur community in any way that I can. So just know that Zane is here.
Mm.
And I guess I would leave them with, you don't have to do this alone. Entrepreneurship can be a very lonely, scary game to go through, and especially being a diverse founder, but know that people are here rooting for you, cheerleading you on, who want to see you succeed. You just have to raise your hand, find those of us who are out here trying to help, and come. You don't have to be alone on this path.
Fantastic. And I'm looking at the questions in the public box, and most of them revolve around, how do we connect? Monica, how can I become a part of we? How do I connect and become, how can I get funding from Zane or get connected? So let's end with that for the three of you to share. How do we get connected to you guys and stay connected, be a part of this great stuff that you're doing? Let's share that. And then it looks like we're close to out of time. So you guys have given it your all, but let's talk about next steps and how do we connect and keep this conversation going.
I would say follow the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative on all of our socials, particularly on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Reach out to me directly. I am Monica at weatlanta.com. Again, Monica at weiatlanta.com. And participate in our programming. I'm trying to make sure that it's not just specific to the 15 businesses that we recruit in each cohort, but that we expand it and touch all female entrepreneurs in the city. And we will be recruiting for a new cohort at the end of 2021.
Fantastic. Zane team.
So we're Zane Venture Fund on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And our website is zane.vc. Connect with us there, and you can find out all about all of our programs and resources that we have available.
I will say this in my closing, guys. I have been to Silicon Valley. I have been to the Research Triangle in Durham, Raleigh. I've been to Boston and the Cambridge area. I've been to Austin. I've been to Nashville. And I'll tell you what, Atlanta's a special city. And although they are in the news and on the cover of magazines, none of them have what we have here. And absolutely none of them are getting diversity right. Atlanta has the opportunity to create something that history will never forget. And this panel is an example of the type of talent that we have that is diverse and powerful and insightful and deliberate. And shame on all of us that are on this panel and anybody that's listening. If we don't take all of the resources that we have in Atlanta and make an incredible impact that will last for generations, it is time, guys. And it is time for entrepreneurs to take these problems that we're experiencing, these discrepancies that are real, this pain that the entrepreneurial and business community is feeling, and turn it into power. I want to thank Invest Atlanta, Nathan and Amy and everyone on the team, Dr. Clementich, for having the insight and the leadership to bring together these panels, not only for the sake of information sharing, but certainly because of community building. And Atlanta has that advantage as a community that refuses to stay down. Thank you so much, guys. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Amy Love, who's going to close us out for the day. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you to our panelists.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
It's tough to follow, Jay Bailey, but thank you so much, all of you. I think this is just showing how much enthusiasm we do have here in our city for entrepreneurship and innovators, and for really seeking diversity and seeking community, looking for access, opportunity, exposure, not just happy talk, as Monica said. Thank you all for bringing this subject to light, for the beautiful way that this unfolded this morning, and for your support of Invest Atlanta. Thanks so much. I'd like to acknowledge our partners. Well, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge all of the viewers. We had such a great viewer community this morning, super interactive, and one of the best yet. Thanks all of you for being there for us, and thank you to our partners. So we have pulled together a great group of innovators in the community, and I'd like to just go through those. Thank you again to Zane Venture Fund, Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and we this morning. Also want to thank TAG, ATDC, ATV, Engage, Tech Square Ventures, Venture Atlanta, WeWork Labs, Silicon Valley Bank, Independent Bankers Association of America, Atlanta CEO Council, Georgia Alive, Launchpad 2X, Lab 1886, Overline VC, and MailChimp, and many more of you who are always supportive of us. Thanks for helping us spread the word and really reach the startups and scale-ups in our community that we hope to inspire with these sessions. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Stay well.